If you're trying to learn jazz standards and become a better jazz improviser, the sheer amount of jazz standards there are out there can be incredibly overwhelming. Like, which ones do you learn and which ones are going to help you accelerate your jazz skills? Well, in today's video, I'm going to go over the only 3 that I think you need to learn in order to take your jazz playing to the next level and make all other jazz standards way easier to learn. Let's do this thing. What's up, Brent here from LearnJazzStandards.com, which is a blog, a podcast, and videos all geared towards helping you become a better jazz musician. Make sure you subscribe at that button below if you've never done it before to get locked in with everything we've got going on here. Like I said, jazz standards, there's so many of them. Which ones do we really need to learn? Whether you're starting from the very beginning or even if you're somewhere in the middle of your jazz journey, I want to make sure you're learning the right ones. And I like to simplify things for people on this channel and make things easy. So I'm going to be going over my 3 jazz standards that I think you should learn and really just take all others out of the picture until you've learned these 3, because after that, things are going to be way easier. Now, really quickly, I want to say I'm not including the blues or rhythm changes tunes in this list. Those are what I would say are important song forms to learn. And yes, you should know those in addition to these 3. Now, before I go ahead and start doing that, what I want you to be thinking about and answering in the comments below is, if you were to only pick 3 jazz standards to tell someone to learn, which 3 would those jazz standards be? Go ahead, leave a comment below and let me know what you think those are. All right, now the first one is Autumn Leaves. Autumn Leaves is a great study of relative keys, meaning the relative major and the relative minor, and also the 2 most important chord progressions in all of jazz, which is the major 2-5-1 and the minor 2-5-1. So let's take a little look right now at Autumn Leaves. So right here, we start with a 2-5-1 in B flat major, but actually the key of this song is G minor. So what is B flat major to G minor? B flat major is the relative major to G minor. And here we have a 2-5-1 in a minor key. The 2-5-1 in the minor and the 2-5-1 in the major are super important. And another cool little lesson here is this 4 chord right here in B flat major. Now, for this particular analysis, I'm thinking about these in relative keys rather than relating each chord back to the minor key, but you can do that as well. These 2 concepts are what make Autumn Leaves a really important jazz standard to learn: the relative keys and the major 2-5-1 and the minor 2-5-1. If you know these 2 concepts, it's going to really propel your jazz skills and just help you understand every other jazz standard there is out there. All right, jazz standard number 2 is Blue Bossa. Now, Blue Bossa is a pretty simple song, and that's a good thing for someone who's a beginner, but it's also a great study of minor harmony, and we need to understand that in jazz, of course. Another great thing about Blue Bossa is that it is in fact a bossa, so it's a straight 8th tune with a bossa groove, which is an important part of jazz. While the other jazz standards I'm suggesting today usually have a swing feel with them, this one has a straight 8th feel, and we need to get the feel of that in our jazz improv. So if you take a look at Blue Bossa, we start with the 1 chord here. It's in the key of C minor, and then we have this move to the 4 chord right here, which is F minor. Now, this is really important because this movement to the 4 chord is common in the blues as well, and we need to understand that. Now, there is another way to look at this, because there's a B flat 7 here. You can think of that as the dominant 7th here, or a 2-5 of the relative major, but that's sort of a side fact to the fact that we're dealing with a 1-4 relationship. And then, of course, our good friend, the minor 2-5-1 back to the parent major. Now, a cool and interesting thing about Blue Bossa that I also think makes it worth learning is that we start dealing with non-diatonic keys, meaning that they're not necessarily related back to the parent key, which in this case is C minor. In this case, we move to D flat major here, and it's just a major 2-5-1. So again, knowing Autumn Leaves and knowing Blue Bossa reinforces these major and minor 2-5-1 concepts. If we can recognize these, I mean, it's really going to open up everything for our jazz improv and learning other jazz standards. Now, the third jazz standard you need to know is "It Could Happen to You." "It Could Happen to You" is not necessarily a very easy song to play, but it really embodies all of major diatonic harmony, as well as relative minor associations, as well as a few other interesting concepts that come up in jazz standards all the time. So if you're taking a look at "It Could Happen to You" right now, we start with the one chord, but then we go to a really important concept in jazz, which are secondary dominants. Now, I've done a video on secondary dominants, and I'll go ahead and link that up in the cards above, but this is basically the concept here is we have a 2-5-1 into F minor. However, this F minor is really just functioning as the 2 chord in E flat major. So whenever we are approaching a dominant 7th chord, and basically what we call tonicizing it, we call it a secondary dominant. So we call it a 2-5 of 2. This is really important. It's going to come up in jazz harmony all of the time. Now we see this happen again here in bar 4 with a 2-5 of 3. Now this one doesn't have a resolution to it, which is also something that happens in jazz harmony quite often. All right, then we move through the form here. We have some movements to blues-like chords, although it's really just substituting for this A flat major 7, which is the 4 chord, right? And then once again, we have a 2-5-1 of 2. So this is reinforcing this concept here. Another important thing that happens in jazz standards a lot happens here in bar 10, which is this A flat minor 6. It's the minor 4. Essentially, this is called modal modulation. We are borrowing from the parallel minor, meaning that if this is in the key of E flat major, which it is, the parallel minor is E flat minor, and the 4 chord of E flat minor is A flat minor. So this will happen a lot in jazz standards. So if you understand this, you're going to recognize this. Now, our good friend, the movement to the relative minor, happens here. D minor 7 flat 5, G7 to C minor 7, which is, of course, the 6th chord, and I have it written right there. This is the relative minor, and we saw this happen in Autumn Leaves, which is why this is super important to understand this concept. So in my opinion, these are really the only 3 jazz standards you need to know. Now, obviously, when I say that, I don't mean that you should never learn any other jazz standards. Otherwise, you're not going to really be able to play with many people because there's so many other worthwhile jazz standards to learn. I just mean if you know these 3, these are really all you need to get a really strong foothold into jazz harmony, which will propel your jazz improvisation skills. This makes things simple. But of course, this is just my opinion. I want to hear from you. Leave in the comments below. If you could only tell someone to learn 3 jazz standards, what would those jazz standards be? Leave that comment below. And hey, make sure you like this video, smash that like button, tap that like button, do a little dance and hit the like button for me right now, just to, tell YouTube that this is an awesome video that you should share with other people. I really appreciate that. And hey, by the way, if you want to study these particular jazz standards more, I have a great ebook and companion course for that called The Jazz Standards Playbook. You can find it at thejazzstandardsplaybook.com if you want to kind of dig in deeper with some of these chords analysis and improv lessons and other resources to help you learn these and other jazz standards. All right, that's all for this video today. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.